So we're just adding in like some sun salutations and things like that, just adding in a few more challenges. Okay, so we're gonna start on your back whenever you're ready. All right, so we're gonna take a couple moments just to settle in. And our focus is going to be on the area of the rib cage today. So if the rib cage tends to flare even just a tiny bit, it has particular effects on our body. One of those effects is that it will tighten up our back, and it can contribute to back pain when our rib cage is out of alignment. Another thing that happens when our rib cage is out of alignment is that we lose our core. We lose our power center. So we're going to be really focusing on that today, how the positioning of the rib cage can help us feel more in touch with our sense of power, a sense of our core, and the sense of our control in different postures. Particularly the balancing postures, when we control the rib cage, it can help us find better balance as well. So I'm going to share a little reading before we begin. And as I read, I'd like to just focus on your breath. And focus on the area of your rib cage kind of dropping toward the ground. So you might observe, does your rib cage kind of pop up away from the ground at all and start to let it drop? So this is from a book that I read recently called Power versus Force. And we're going to just talk a little bit about this today, this idea of what's the difference between power and force. So why is it that force always eventually succumbs to power? And what is the difference between the two? So power appeals to that which uplifts us, dignifies, and ennobles. But force must always be justified, whereas power requires no justification. Force is associated with the partial, power with the whole. If we analyze the nature of force, it becomes readily apparent that it must always succumb to power. This is accordance with one of the basic laws of physics. Because force automatically creates counter force, its effect is limited by definition. We could say that force is a movement. It goes from here to there, or tries to against opposition. Power, on the other hand, stands still. It is like a standing field that does not move. Gravity, for instance, does not move against anything. Its power moves objects within its field, but the gravity field itself does not move. So I'll read a little bit more of that to you later, but it's kind of this idea in our practice of when are we in our power and when are we kind of forcing ourselves into a pose or forcing ourselves to do a version of the pose that maybe feels less empowered. So we'll go for that sense of empowerment today. So from here, take a full body stretch. And then give your knees a hug into your chest. Keep the knees hugging into the chest. And then press your back rib cage down into the ground. And as you press your back rib cage down, can you get a sense of feeling your core muscles engage? Now, place your hands on your kneecaps. And as you inhale, move your knees away. And you might feel your back arches a little bit there. And then as you exhale, pull the knees in and press your back ribs into the ground. Now do that a few more times. Inhale, the knees move away. Exhale, knees in and press your back ribs down. Two more like this. Inhale, knees away. Exhale, press. One more time. So we're using these kind of initial on your back poses. Go ahead, release your feet to the ground to get acquainted with what it feels like to engage the core by kind of aligning the rib cage. Okay, feet flat. And as you rest here, can you get a sense of how much your back rib cage touched the ground? So the farther they're away from the ground, just kind of in a natural position, the more you have a rib cage flare. For most of us, when we're on our backs, we don't feel it as much as once we stand up. So we'll look at it when we stand up. Okay, hands on your rib cage, right below your chest. This area in the yoga tradition is known as the third chakra. Third chakra is associated with the color yellow and our fire element in our body. We're going to take an inhale, and as you exhale, use your hands, press your rib cage down toward the ground. And then just kind of feel those core muscles engage. And then try that a few times. Inhale, relax the rib cage a little bit, relax your hands. Exhale, press your back ribs down into the ground. Use your hands to press. And do that 2 more times. So this area of the solar plexus, the third chakra, the abdomen, liver, stomach, also associated with the concept of transformation. One more time. So it helps us, this area of our body, we transform our food into energy. And we transform our life experiences into wisdom. So this is what the yogis say in the yoga philosophy, is that this area of their chakra, last time here, and relax. Associated with our willpower, our strength, our determination. All right, from here, we're going to take the arms and take them overhead. Now, when we take the arms overhead, it often changes the position of our rib cage. So notice if your rib cage flares more when your arms are overhead. And that's often a compensation pattern for our tight shoulders. So in order for the arms to go overhead, for some of us, if our shoulders are tight, our rib cage is going to flare. So we'll notice this again when we're standing up. So for now, arms overhead, press your back ribs into the ground and feel that power of the core. Okay, 2 more like that. Inhale, exhale, press. 1 more time. All right, release. Now we're going to bring our knees over our hips. So you're going to lift your feet up and put your knees right over your hips and take your arms straight up toward the ceiling. Okay? Now we're going to press those back ribs down so you feel your engagement of your core, feel that power center. I want you to stay connected to that power center as you start to take your right leg straight in front of you, but don't touch the ground, and your left arm overhead. But keep pressing those ribs. It's going to be really tempting to let this go into your lower back, and then back up to the center. Starting position. Okay, left arm, right leg. And you're going to move really slow, and you're going to press those back ribs into the ground. So a couple more side to side on your own. And you want to go super slow motion and try to maintain a sense of those back ribs pressing. Now, if this is pretty easy and you're feeling like you want more challenge, so I'm giving you guys options. You're going to straighten both legs up toward the ceiling. And you're going to do this with straight legs. So when the right arm goes overhead, left leg, and now the legs are straight the whole time. And you go back to position, arms and legs straight up. And then left arm, right leg. So on your own, let's do 2 more cycles. Go slow motion, either with bent legs to a straight leg or straight legs the whole time. But you're using control, you're using your power center to not let this go into your lower back. So here's where we always say, you know, if we have back problems, it has a lot to do with our core. So here's a good example of if we let our core go, we let our power center go, we're going to take more strain in our lower back. After that second round, go ahead and release. Come all the way down. And now let's stretch the legs out all the way on back to the ground. Okay. Now, we're in a position that if we were standing, it would be called our mountain pose, right? Our Tadasana. So when we stand in Tadasana, how much does our rib cage flare when we're standing? So right here in this position, can you press those back ribs down? And now keep the back ribs pressing down, reach your arms overhead. So now you're in a full body stretch. If we were standing up, we would be with the arms overhead and the legs would be rooting down into the ground. Flex your feet, press your thighs down, press your back ribs down. Okay, I'm gonna add on here, lift your right arm up off the ground. Keep pressing your back ribs. Lift your left arm off the ground, just a few inches. So we're staying really low to the ground. Press your back ribs, lift your head, chest, and a little bit of your shoulders. And press those back ribs, press your thighs down. Use your core. And release. Pause there. Now, if anything's too much, feel free to modify. You don't have to lift your head. You could just do one arm at a time, totally up to you. Okay, press your back ribs. Keep them pressing, lift your right leg. Lift your left arm and press. Good, release. Left leg, keep pressing your back ribs, right arm. And release. All right, we're gonna take the arms down at your side for a moment. Press your back ribs into the ground. We're actually gonna bring the arms into a robot position. So palms facing each other, like when we set up for bridge pose. Press your elbows, your shoulders, your back ribs down, lengthen through your tailbone, and now squeeze your legs together and see if you can pick both heels up. Now this might be hard. If you can't do it, don't strain your back. Keep your back ribs pressing. Press and release. All right, take a breath into your belly. Arms back overhead. Press your back ribs. Squeeze your legs together. Lengthen your tailbone. Bring both legs off the ground if you can. And now take both arms, reach them forward towards your feet. Lift your head. Press your back ribs, press your sacrum. And you're in a very low boat pose. Good, release. All right, hopefully you're feeling your core by now. Bend your knees and let's windshield wiper. Side to side, release a little bit. Okay, we're gonna roll all the way over to the side and go ahead, come on up into a seated position. And feel free to sit up on something if you like. Okay, so we're gonna sit up nice and tall here in our seated position. Excuse me. And then we're gonna notice this rib cage flare thing. So I want you to intentionally flare your ribs so you can feel what that's like. Put your hands on your rib cage. And now kind of flare your rib cage forward. So you're gonna press the ribs forward towards your hands and you'll feel how your back is tight when you do that. Now try to line your rib cage right over your pelvis. You might need to use your hands to pull the front ribs down and the back ribs up a little bit. Once you're in neutral, you should not feel so much strain in your back. Let's try that one more time. Tip your rib cage forward, feel that tightening of your back. And then we're gonna balance the rib cage right over the pelvis. Okay, now try not to pop your ribs. Let's take the arms up. So notice when you take your arms up, does your rib cage pop forward and your back gets tight? So keep the rib cage over your pelvis and even press your back ribs back a little bit to an imaginary wall. You should feel those core muscles engage and then interlace your palms, press your palms up. And can you stay connected to your core as you reach your arms up? Good. Release, let the arms come down. Take a breath. Okay, we're gonna add a twist on and we're gonna keep this kind of feeling of connection to the core. Inhale, reach your arms up. Interlace your palms. Press your back ribs back a little bit till you feel your core engaged. Now there's a difference between pressing our ribs back, which I'm doing right now, I'm connected to my core, and rounding. Okay, so I don't want to press back so much that I'm rounding, just enough that I feel this slight engagement in the core. And then you're going to go ahead and twist to your right. So bring your left hand to right knee. Bring your right hand behind you. Very good. Okay. Inhale, sit up tall. Exhale, twist. And now press your rib cage just back a little bit so you feel a little bit more core engagement and turn into the twist. Good. Stay connected to your power. Inhale, reach up to center. Good. Exhale, twist the other way. Inhale, sit up taller. Exhale, turn. And then pull that rib cage back a little bit. One more breath here. And then release. Inhale back to the center, reach your arms up. Exhale, hands down to the ground. Okay, we're gonna bring our feet out in front of us, like this, and put your hands on the ground behind you. I'm gonna do a couple of reverse tabletops. So reverse tabletops, when we press up, lift our hips. But it's very tempting here to kind of pop your rib cage. So I want you instead to use your glutes, use your legs, use your arms, and not like pop your ribs as a little bit of a compensation. So let's give it a try. We're gonna press down into the feet and the hands, lift the hips. And now try not to pop your rib cage and your belly up. Just use your legs. Push down, push into your feet, push into your arms, lift your sit bones, lift your tailbone. Maybe gaze up and then release down. Okay? So we're gonna do that 2 more rounds. So first, let's try this time. Connect to your core by engaging your core muscles. Draw your low belly in toward your spine. Keep that and press up. And then use your legs, use your hands, lift your tailbone up and release. Okay, one more time, take a break if you need to. You can always do this on fists as well. Last time, engage your core and lift up. Good, and release. And then we'll come up and just shake it out a little bit. And come into all fours when you're ready. I didn't want to go right into that extra weight bearing after we just did the tabletop. Reverse tabletop, now we're going to do regular tabletop. And we'll do our cat-cows. Okay, so when we do our cat-cows, if we're not engaging our core, so first let's do a cow without engaging our core. Arch your back and really just kind of let your belly go. And if you let your belly go here, you really get excessively arched in your lower back. Now come back to neutral. Tone your belly, press in your palms, press your back ribs up a little bit till you feel your core engage. Now lift your sit bones and come into your cow pose. It's gonna feel very different. Now your lower back should feel a lot more supported. You're not just dropping your belly, you're not just overarching your back. Okay, now let's reverse and round your spine. And as you round your spine, now you can really press those ribs up, back ribs toward the ceiling, really engage your core. And then reverse, inhale. And as you inhale, can you control what's happening in your lower back by keeping some core engagement? All right, so 3 more cycles going slowly. And try to keep some of that tone in your belly so you're not just dropping into your lower back. So it's pretty amazing. I teach this pose almost every class, but every time we kind of change the focus of it a little bit. So today's focus of it is controlling the core. One more round. And it also slows you down when you engage the core. When you just kind of let it go, you're moving on momentum and you're not building as much strength and support for your lower back. So find a child's pose after this next round. And just give your arms a bit of a break because we're going to do more in our tabletop position today. Okay, so let's take about 2 or 3 breaths just to rest the arms. And we're going to work on our balancing tabletop. It's a really good example or exercise in how to maintain our core and how it can help us with our balance. Okay, when you're ready, back up into your tabletop, hands underneath your shoulders. Press through your palms, get long through your arms. And then press your back ribs up without rounding your back. Keep your chest and your head reaching forward. Now we're going to take the right leg back. And can you stay connected to your core the whole time? Because once we lift the leg, if the leg, the glute, the hamstring are weak and the lower back is weak, we're going to dip right into our lower back. So keep that connection to your power and lift the right leg up. Now don't dip into your lower back. You should be using your glute muscle, the back of your hamstring. You should be engaging that core. The back ribs are pressing toward the ceiling. And release. Okay, other side. So first press through your palms, press those back ribs up like you're going to do a rounded cat, but then get the rounding out of your back by reaching your sternum and your head forward. Keep the core engagement, connect to your power, take your opposite leg back. Left leg, lift it up without losing your core. So the minute I let my rib cage flare, let's actually try it so you guys know the difference. Let your rib cage flare forward and see how you dump right into your lower back. Okay, now lift the back ribs, connect to your power. You gotta use your leg a little bit more now. And release. Okay, back to child's pose. It's a lot more work when we do it correctly than when we just go into those habits that we all have, where we're compensating, where we're not using our muscular strength. So very big difference when we do this pose correctly, but you're gonna ultimately get stronger. We're gonna add in the arms now. So go ahead, come back up. Press through your palms, engage your core, press your back ribs up, right leg back. Lift the right leg without dumping into your lower back. Really squeeze the glute. And now opposite arm reaches forward. And stay connected to your core. Press your back ribs up, but then reach your chest and head forward. Good, release. Other side. So before you take that leg up, prepare. Then take the leg back. Stay connected to your core, lift the leg up. And then opposite arm. Press into the ground, press your back ribs up. And release. Okay, nice work. Come back to child's pose one more time. And then we're gonna slide forward onto our bellies. And come all the way down. We're gonna come into Sphinx posture, clasping the hands. All right, so from here, push down into your forearms, draw your rib cage back a little bit and push down again into the arms. And then we're gonna tuck the toes under. And we're going to start to lift the hips off the ground. So we're in a little bit of a dolphin plank, we call it. We're going to press those back ribs up, press into the arms, If you want more challenge, you're gonna pick up your knees and come into a full dolphin plank. Okay, make sure you're pressing those back ribs up and you're not dipping into your lower back. If you're dipping into your lower back and you can't connect to your core, drop your knees. Good, come all the way back down. Nice work. Slide your hands back, tabletop position. So I want to give you a little break off the hands. So we're gonna do a couple of push-ups. Walk your hands a little forward of your shoulders. So you're on a very slight incline. You're gonna be on your knees and you're gonna push through your palms. Tuck your tailbone down just enough that you feel connected to your core. Press your back ribs up. Take an inhale, exhale, lower halfway down, bend your elbows. And then push up, stay connected to your core. 2 more if you can. Bend your elbows, lower. Now if you're super with that challenge, you can always pick those knees up. I'm not doing that today, but you can if you want. Lower down, last round. Good, and come all the way back down to your belly. Hands by your lower chest. Inhale, cobra pose. Now in cobra, we do get that rib cage a little more forward because it's a back bend. So our back's going to tighten up in a back bend. But we do want to control it by connecting to our power a bit. So pull the rib cage back a little bit, tone your belly, and release. Okay, press to all fours. And we're making our way up to down dog. Walk it in, feet to the top of the mat. Inhale to your halfway lift. Exhale, fold over your legs. Inhale, circle your arms all the way up. Exhale, hands to your heart. Okay, let's look at our posture standing now. So I'm gonna go sideways. Bring your hands on your rib cage like we did seated. Okay, first let's let the rib cage intentionally pop forward. And you'll notice how that tightens your back, right? So especially if we carry a lot of weight in our belly, it will tend to pull our spine that way and it will tighten up our back. So now we've got to get that rib cage right over the pelvis. Draw your front ribs down a little, back ribs up a little bit, and find that neutral positioning. Very good. Stand strong in your legs. Now, can you keep that without going into your lower back? Take your arms up. Can you stay connected to your power? Interlace your palms, press up. Good. Now press your back ribs back just enough till you feel that core engagement. Press through your feet, press through your palms, and lift your rib cage up without popping the ribs. As you exhale, fold forward, bend your knees, half sun salutation. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, hands to your heart. Good, 2 more rounds. Inhale, reach when you're ready. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale and fold. Inhale, rise up. Exhale to your heart. Good. 1 more round. We're going to pause in the halfway up this time. Inhale, reach your arms. Exhale, fold forward. Halfway lift and pause. Hands on thighs or shins. And now hold here, bend the knees just a little bit. Tuck your chin, lengthen the crown of your head. Lift your shoulders away from the ground. And now press your back ribs up just enough that you feel the core engage. It's very subtle. So I'm not asking you to round your back. I'm asking you to keep a straight spine, but with the core engaged to support your back. So your chest should be parallel to the ground. Good. And release, fold over your legs. Very good for your back strength. Inhale, reach your arms all the way up. Exhale, bring your hands to your heart. Okay, let's try 2 rounds of our full sun salutation. Inhale, reach your arms up, and as you reach your arms up, don't pop the ribs. Exhale, fold. Inhale your halfway lift, and then we're gonna step back to plank pose. Top level push up, either with your knees up or down. We're gonna stay connected to our core and pause. Stay connected to the core as you lower down. Inhale, cobra. Exhale, downward facing dog. Okay, we're gonna hold the dog for 3 breaths, working on the upper body strength, little bend in the knees. Lift your sit bones up. Hold it here. 1 more breath. And then when you're ready, walk your feet forward, top of the mat. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale and fold. Inhale, arms reach. Exhale to your heart. Good, 1 more time through. Inhale, arms reach. I'm gonna watch you guys this time. Good. Exhale, fold over your legs. Inhale to that halfway lift, long spine. Good. Plant your hands, step back, plank pose. Your choice if you'd like to bring your knees to the ground. And we're gonna stay connected to the core as you lower down. Take your time lowering. You can always drop your knees in the transition. Inhale, cobra. Shoulders back. Exhale, downward facing dog. Very good. Okay, hold your dog for a breath or 2, building that upper body strength. And then when you're ready, go ahead and walk your feet forward, top of the mat. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, circle the arms up. Exhale to your heart. Good. Okay, grab your blocks, have them at the top of your mat. So we're going to explore this feeling of the rib cage pressing back in our lunges today. So always different things we can do in our lunges. And we'll be on the knee for a little bit if you want padding, keep your blanket nearby. Inhale, arms reach up. Exhale, fold, hands on your blocks. Step your right foot back, come into a lunge, move your blocks back so they're under your shoulders, and back knee down. Okay? And then as you feel stable, we're going to bring the hands up on the front thigh. All right, so some of the actions we always work on is rooting down into the ground, hugging into center, and then we're going to press the hands into the front leg so we're nice and tall through the spine, and then gently press your back ribs back till you feel that core engagement. All right, see if you can keep that connection to your power. Take your arms up. And try not to flare your rib cage. So if we are doing this correctly, we should feel like we have a little bit of engagement in the core here. Okay, hands down to the blocks. We're going to tuck the back toes, lift the back knee. And then we're going to take our time here. Put a little bend in that back knee. Make sure that you're not on a tightrope, meaning your front foot and your back foot have a separation between them. And we're going to bring the hands on the front thigh and come up to a high lunge. Okay, so it's unsteady here, so get yourself grounded. Bend the back knee a little bit. Root into the floor. Hug your outer legs together. Okay. Now we've got to get this rib cage action. So press your back ribs back so you feel connected to your core. That might also help you engage your back hip flexor. Hands to heart if you're steady. If not, you can keep hands on hips or thigh. Keep the back rib cage pressing back and then try to reach your arms up. So you feel connected to the core the whole time. Hold here, one more breath. Good, and then release, hands down. Step forward. Fold over your legs. You can bring your blocks in front of you and then rise up. Inhale, stand all the way up. Exhale, hands to your heart. So this is a way that we build strength in our core without even doing crunches, right? If we have good posture on a regular basis, our core is naturally going to be stronger even without all the sit-ups, okay? So let's try the other side. Stand in mountain, inhale, arms reach. Exhale, fold, hands to blocks. Inhale, step your left foot back. Move your blocks. Back knee down. Okay, when you're stable, hands on your front thigh. Root down, hug the midline, and then press those back ribs back till you feel the core engagement. Not so much that I'm rounding my spine, just enough that I feel the rib cage is back and the core muscles are tight. Okay, keep that engagement of the core, take the arms up. Hold it here, one more breath, reach a little higher without flaring your ribs. And then release, hands down. Okay, now go to the high lunge. Tuck your back toes, lift your back knee. And we've got to go slow here. It's very unstable just till we get there. Hands on the front thigh. And put a bend in your back knee. So the bend in the back knee helps us get a little more neutral with our spine. If that leg is straight, I tend to flare my ribs, so you can try that. Straighten the legs, your ribs are gonna pop, and you'll lose your core. That's because for most of us, our hip flexors are tight. Okay, draw your rib cage back. You might feel more stretch in that hip flexor. Feel the connection to your core, maybe hands to heart, or maybe arms overhead. So only go with what feels stable. If you're wobbling a lot, you're going to keep those hands down lower. Good, rib cage back, connect to your core, to your power. And then release, hands down, step forward, fold over your legs. Inhale, reach those arms all the way up. Exhale, hands to your heart. Okay. So let's put this into some standing balance now. So I want to work on tree and then warrior three. So first let's try our tree pose and we'll see if we can stay connected to the core as we come into our tree. So stand on your right leg and we're going to bring the left heel above the ankle. So just start with your kickstand. Yeah, feel free to use the wall space if you like. And then we're going to have our hands on our rib cage. Press your rib cage gently back. Keep your tailbone down and your chest lifted till you feel that connection to your core. Your front hip points lift up a little bit. It's almost like you're trying to draw your tailbone and your sternum together. It's like a little hook. And then that naturally will engage your core. If you're steady, hands to heart. Can you maintain that connection to your core by pressing your back ribs back, but keeping your chest lifted? If you like, you can pick your foot up off the ground. If you're unsteady, keep that foot down. Now we'll try to take the arms overhead without flaring the rib cage. Can you press your ribs back and stay connected to your core even as your arms reach up all the way? One more breath, steady your gaze. Good, and then slowly release. Shake it out a little bit. So in our balance postures, if we're in tree and we do this to get our arms up, we pop our ribs, I'm exaggerating. It's gonna throw our balance off. We're gonna feel like we're gonna go backwards. So we gotta keep that rib cage right over the pelvis. Okay, let's try the other side. So stand on your left leg, bring your right heel up. And just start with hands down on your rib cage. And you're gonna feel like you're pressing those ribs into your body. Press your back ribs back a little bit. And just very slightly feeling like your tailbone and your sternum are gonna try and connect. So you feel that core engagement. So we need to do all these actions without rounding the spine. Then hands to heart if you're steady. Stay connected to your core. Some of you might pick the foot up. And you're drawing to the midline, you're staying connected to the core. Maybe the arms could come up. Good, and can you still feel your core here as you take the arms up? One more breath, steady gaze. And slowly release. Foot down, arms down, shake it out a little bit. Okay, so now we're gonna try that in the Warrior Three. So Warrior Three is very much like the balancing table we did on our knees, but now we're gonna be doing it standing with the help of the blocks. So grab your blocks again if you don't have those at the top of your mat. And we're gonna put our hands down on the blocks. And we're gonna make sure that those blocks are right under the shoulders. Push down into the blocks. Push your back ribs up till you feel your core engage, and then reach your chest and your head forward to make sure you're not rounding your spine. Take your right leg back with your toes on the ground. Just back behind you. Keep that connection to your core as you lift the leg up. Now, try not to let your lower back dip. You should be connecting to your core. Push those back ribs up by pushing into the blocks, and then sternum and head forward. Try to use your leg muscles. Opposite arm could go forward if you are steady enough. Okay, and keep that engagement to your core. If you lose it and you dip into your lower back, don't lift the arm today. Make sure the block is under your shoulder. Some of you, the block is out to the side pretty far. Okay, slowly release. Foot down. If you want to fold, you can. And eventually make your way back up. Reach the arms overhead. And draw hands to heart. Okay, so watch for a second. If this block is out to the side and I'm trying to balance, like the blocks are out here, it's gonna be really hard. So you want the right direct line under your shoulder. So check that out before we do the other side, okay? All right. Inhale, reach your arms up. Exhale, fold, hands to blocks. Before you take your leg up, connect to your core. Push through your arms and your palms. Press your back ribs up till you feel the core engage, but then sternum forward, head forward. So we're trying to keep the core engaged without rounding the back. Left leg back, toes on the ground. Stay connected to your core as you lift the leg up. Push in your palms. Use those core muscles. And then opposite arm if you feel steady enough. But don't force it. Are you using power or are you using force? One more breath. Did you dip into your lower back? Good. Release, foot down, fold forward over your legs. And now stay there a couple breaths. Widen out your feet. Maybe take a little sway side to side. Let everything go. And switch your arms. Stay for another breath or two. Keep a little bend in those knees. All right. When you're ready, go ahead, slowly either press up or roll up. Use your legs and come back to your mountain pose. Okay, stand in your mountain pose for a moment and see if you can just find your core. Can you press those ribs back? Can you feel a natural engagement of your core without doing a crunch? So we stand in our power. Hold here one more breath. Very good. Inhale, reach your arms up. Exhale, fold forward over your legs. Inhale to a halfway lift. Step back to downward facing dog. And then knees down, child's pose. All right, we're going to take a couple of breaths in child's pose to transition onto the ground. And I'm just going to read a little bit more of the book to you guys while I take a few breaths. So, force always moves against something, whereas power does not move against anything. Force is intrinsically incomplete and therefore constantly has to be fed energy. Power is total and complete in and of itself and requires nothing from outside of itself. It makes no demands, it has no needs. But because force has an insatiable appetite, it constantly consumes. Power, in contrast, energizes, gives forth, supplies, and supports. Power gives life force and energy. Force takes these away. All right, slowly go ahead and make your way up into a seated posture. And you might want to sit on your folded blanket. We're going to do another seated twist, a little more challenging this time, okay? So when we force things, whether it's in life, I know this with my teenage kids these days, we can't force them to do things, but we can kind of stand in our power and, have our boundaries and have our, innate sense of power without forcing that on other people. So we know we can't change other people, but we can still stand in our power and what it is that we want out of life. So we're going to take our legs out straight. So to me, that's kind of what that passage referred to. We're going to bend the right knee, bring that foot in close, and then hug your shin with your hands. Pull on the shin, lift your chest, and notice if you popped your ribs to make yourself kind of feel like you're sitting up taller. So that rib cage pop can also compensate for lack of strength in our spine and in our core. Okay, so lengthen without popping your ribs. Now we're going to hold on with our left hand, take the right arm up. Inhale, try to touch the ceiling. Exhale, bring the hand back behind you onto the ground. Inhale, lift your chest. Exhale, twist. And you could pull a bit with your left hand to help you into that twist. But now, let's see if we can press that rib cage back a little bit without losing the length in your spine. Just enough that we feel more core energy. And then turn a little more without the force. So kind of go from your power. Sometimes if we yank and pull and force in a yoga posture, we end up depleting ourselves or we injure ourselves. And again, that's more of the ego versus coming from that intrinsic sense of power. One more breath. Press the crown of the head straight up. And then inhale to unwind back to the center. Extend the leg out. Okay, let's try the other side. Bring that foot in, hug the shin. Sit up as tall as you can without flaring the rib cage. We'll hold on with right hand, left arm up. Inhale, try to touch the ceiling and then bring that hand behind you onto the ground. Inhale, lift your chest, exhale, and twist. All right, and then just maybe pull gently with that right hand. We don't want to overdo it. Don't use too much force there. Go from power. Inhale, sit up taller. Exhale, turn, and then gently press your back ribs back. Hold it here. Sit up as tall as you can. Crown of the head lifting up. And then inhale to unwind and straighten that leg back out. All right, let's just do one neutral pose after the twist. Soles of the feet together, a bound angle. Might feel nice after all the lungy work and the balancing work. So sit up tall without popping the ribs. You can stay here, or we're going to come into a forward fold. So forward folds are a little softer. We're not engaging the core in our forward folds. We're just getting a nice stretch. So when it comes to our yoga practice, as well as life off the mat, we have to remember that there are times when we need to be strong and we need to engage. We need to use our power. And other times when we need to be soft and relax our bellies and just be a little bit more relaxed. You don't have to engage that core 24/7. And in fact, it's a good idea not to keep it engaged 24/7. We engage it all the time and eventually limits the function of our diaphragm and our breath and our digestion. So this is the time now to let it be soft. Okay, slowly start to bring yourself up. Pause at the top. And then we'll bring the legs together with our hands, and you'll come on your back. And you could put a blanket or a pillow, whatever you've got there under your head. And just come down. You can take a full body stretch. If you like, you can hug your knees in. Not quite at Shavasana yet, but almost. Okay, let's come into happy baby. So happy baby, we're either gonna hold our ankles, our shins, or our feet. And we're gonna pause here and press those back ribs down. So if you press your back ribs down in happy baby, you feel a little bit more of that core engagement. And then option to take your legs out straight to the sides. We open those inner thighs up. If that's too much, stay in a regular happy baby. And if you can't hold your feet, hold your ankles or your legs. And then press those back ribs into the ground one more time. And then we'll release and hug in once again. Okay, feet to the ground. Pause here with the feet on the ground. And notice how big of a curve is there in your lower back. So we want to have a curve in our lower back. That's very natural. We don't want it always to be flat, okay? But when we're doing our core work, we definitely tend to flatten it as a means of engaging the core. So notice the lower back curve. We want to have a little bit, but not so much that we feel like it's tightening our back. So if I overarch it, it's going to feel uncomfortable. So just have a gentle, tiny curve in the lower back. Hands on your front ribs. Press your front ribs down into the ground. Good, release. And now straighten your legs. Kind of adjust your lower back a bit if it needs adjusting. Now with legs straight, notice that curve in your lower back. If we find that it's uncomfortable to be here with our legs out straight, tendency is we have too much rib cage flare, too much curve in our lower back, and it doesn't feel good. So let's try to drop that rib cage again. Hands on the rib cage. Take an inhale. Exhale, press your back ribs down into the ground. 2 more rounds. Inhale. The belly be relaxed on the inhale, and exhale, press your ribs into the ground. Back ribs. One more time. Inhale. Exhale, press. Okay, relax your arms at your side. And as you stay here, notice did that rib cage kind of flare up again? We're not going to keep pressing it. I don't want you to be active during Shavasana, but we could kind of energetically imagine the rib cage dropping, getting heavier into the ground. And as the rib cage gets heavier, that lower back can relax a bit more. So let everything in the back body now really magnetize toward the ground. Back of skull, back of shoulders, back of ribs, back of sacrum, back of arms and legs. Let everything drop into the ground. So power is associated with compassion. It makes us feel positively about ourselves. We feel empowered. But force is associated with judgmentalism and tends to make us feel badly about ourselves. When we force ourselves into that yoga pose, we don't necessarily feel so good. It's like a judgment on ourselves, like I have to do this, I have to get this pose. Force always creates counterforce. Its effect is to polarize rather than to unify. Polarization always implies conflict. Its cost, therefore, is always high. Because force incites polarization, it inevitably produces a win-lose dichotomy. And because somebody always loses, enemies are created. Constantly faced with enemies, force requires constant defense. Defensiveness is invariably costly, whether in the marketplace, politics, or international affairs. In looking at the source of power, we have noted that it is associated with meaning, and that this meaning has to do with the significance of life itself. Force is concrete, literal, arguable. It requires proof and support. The sources of power, however, are beyond argument and are not subject to proof. That health is more important than disease, that life is more important than death, that honor is preferable to dishonor, and that faith and trust are preferable to doubt and cynicism. That the constructive is preferable to the destructive are all self-evident statements not subject to proof. Ultimately, the only thing we can say about power is that it just is. All right, so we'll take a couple more moments to rest there. All right, so we're gonna very slowly take your time. Come back to awareness, deepen your breath. Gently begin to move when you are ready to. You can take some bigger movements as it feels right before coming over onto your side for a brief pause. And then when you feel ready to, go ahead, come on up. We'll find a comfortable seat. If you want to sit up on your blanket, you can. And we'll just let hands rest down for a moment, sit up tall. And then either close your eyes or find a soft focal point. Balance your rib cage over your pelvis till you feel that natural engagement of your core. And then keeping that sense of the spine being nice and long, come into your breath. Can you find that balance between staying in your power, but still letting the diaphragm move? Take a couple more moments here. And we can perhaps reflect on how life, is for us. How much are we in our power? How much have we been using force? So when it comes to our third chakra, this area of the abdomen, the solar plexus, power center as we call it, the energy there can be deficient. And so we've lost our core, we've lost our power, we've lost our sense of determination, our willpower, our self-esteem. Or we could have excessive charge in this center in which we're often using that force, moving from ego, trying to control everything in our lives. And both of those are on the polarization, on the opposite ends. So can we find that place in the center where we're living our lives from our power without being disempowered, but also without invoking that sense of force on everything and everyone? So as we go about the next couple of days, you might notice when you start to lose your power or move into force. All right, let's bring our hands together in front of the heart space. Take an inhale and then exhale, bow your head to your heart. Namaste. Thank you, everybody. All right. Hope you guys have a great week. See you next time. Maybe in person, I hope. We'll see. See what the powers that be have to say about it. All right, signing off. See you next time.